jail.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. We covered Kitab Al-Talaaq. And we covered, actually in the last class we finished the book of Talaaq. The last part was the chapter of Raj'iyah, wherein a man divorces his wife and the different options he has in taking her back. Today we're going to cover three books, if you will, before we go into another book. So we're going to cover three books, inshallah ta'ala. The first book that we'll discuss today is called Kitabul Ilah. Kitabul Ilah. Is anyone here familiar with the term Muli or Ilah? The term Ilah. Have you ever heard this before? The same. What does it mean? Ilah. Crickets. Like Kitabul Ilah. Huwa. The first thing before we talk about it, we want to get a definition. هو حلف زوج بالله تعالى أو صفته على ترك وطء زوجته في قبلها أو أكثر من 4 أشهر. This is a very detailed definition. There are times, and it's very specific. So here in this case, we have the definition is هو حلف زوج. If a husband swears by Allah or with the attributes of Allah that he will leave intercourse with his wife for longer than 4 months. This is what Ilah means. The one that does this is called a muli. A muli or mutlin. طيب قال المصنف رحمه الله in the book Zaad Al-Mustaqni, the chapter goes Kitabul Ilah وهو حلف زوج, that the husband he swears that he will not be intimate or have intercourse with his wife for longer than 4 months, meaning he swears that he will not have intercourse with her for more than 4 months. يَصِحُّ مِنْ كَافِرٍ. This also applies if a non-Muslim were to do this, the same ruling would apply. Likewise, if a person is ghadban, sakran, if a husband is mad and he says it, it also counts. If he's drunk, if the spouse is sick, وَمُرْجُ بُرْءُهُ, if they have a type of sickness that they eventually hope to be cured from, وَمِمَّنْ لَمْ يَدْخُلْ بِهَا, and likewise if a man is married but he was not intimate with his spouse yet, it still holds the same rule. If a man were to do this, وَلَا مِن مَجْنُونَ, if a husband is majnoon, meaning he has some intellectual problems, or mughma alayhi, or they pass out, ajiz, or if the husband is ajiz an al-wati, meaning they're not able to have intercourse with their wife, li-jadbin kamilan or shalal, perhaps his body parts have been cut off, making it impossible for him to be intimate or have intercourse with his spouse, or if he has like a stroke or anything like that that would prevent him. So this here is not considered a muli or a person that makes ila'i in this type of situation. Like some ways in how it looks. فَإِذَا قَالَ, if a man says, وَاللَّهِ وَتِئْتُكِ وَلَا وَتِئْتُكِ أَبَدًا, if a man says, by Allah, I will not have intercourse with you ever again. Or, أَيَّنَ مُدَّةً تَزِيدُ عَنْ أَرْبَعَةِ أَشْهُرٍ, or if the man says, I will not have intercourse with you within the next 6 months. Or, حَتَّى يَنْزِلَ عِيسَى, he says, I will not be intimate with you until Isa comes back. Isa ibn Maryam, meaning Jesus the son of Mary. I will not have intercourse with you until he comes back. Or if he says, يَخْرُجُ الدَّجَّالِ, he will not be intimate with her until the Dajjal comes. Or حَتَّى تَشْرَبِ خَمْرًا, or if he says, I won't be intimate with you until you drink khamr, until you drink alcohol, which in itself is muharram. Or he says to his wife, tasqiti dainik, or you paid off your debts, or you paid me. And he says, وَتَهَبَ لِي mal, or he says, until you give me all of your money. If a man does this, then he is considered bamulin. He is mulin, meaning this falls for him. He falls into this category. Now, there are scenarios that we've heard over the years. Perhaps a brother may travel for work, etc. And a sister may say, well, he was not intimate with me for 6 months. The condition is that he swears by Allah not to do that. If he did not swear by Allah not to do that, then this person will not be considered mulin. فإذا مضى 4 أشهر من يمينه ولو قنا فإن وطئ ولو بتطيب حشفته فقد فات. Now, if 4 months went by, if 4 months were to go by, and after those 4 months go by, he now has intercourse with his wife, then khalas, meaning the issue is over. If he does not, if the husband does not have intercourse with his wife during that time period, meaning after the 4 months, إِلَّا أَمْرَهُ بِالطَّلَاقِ, then he will be commanded to divorce her. He will be commanded to divorce her by a hakam, or someone that takes the place of a hakam, meaning a judge. فَإِنْ أَبَى, let's say for example, the husband says, no, I don't care what you say, I'm not divorcing her. فإن أبى طلق حاكم عليه واحدة أو ثلاثا أو فسخ. If the husband says, no, I don't care what you say, I'm still not divorcing her, in this case, a hakam, or a person in charge there, can divorce him from her. Either 1 divorce, 3 divorces, or an annulment of the contract. And they say this is salahiyah. This is because the one in that position, he's going to look at the situation and look and see what is best for both parties. Like, if a man has intercourse with his wife and other than her in her rear, as it mentions here, Oduna farj fama fa. In this case, it will not be sufficient, even though it is impermissible shar'an. وَإِنِ ادَّعَى بَقَاءَ الْمُدَّةِ. So let's say, for example, if she complains about her husband, and he says, no, I still have more time. Before the 4 months is up, I still have more time. It says, وَإِنِ ادَّعَى بَقَاءَ الْمُدَّةِ. Meaning, if he claims that there is more time. Oh, أَنَّهُ وَطِئَهَا. Or he says that, yes, I was intimate with her. I was intimate with her. وَهِيَ ثَيِّبٌ. And she is not a virgin. صُدِّقَ مَا يَمِينِهِ. Then he is believed, meaning the husband is believed, and he must swear bil yamin. He must swear by his right. If the wife or the spouse was a bikr, meaning she was a virgin, وَإِنْ كَانَتْ بِكْرًا وَادَّعَتْ بَكَارَةً, and she claimed that she is still a virgin, وَشَهِدَ بِذَلِكَ إِمْرَأَةٌ عَدَلٌ, and there are women that are just عَدَلٌ, they are able to know this type of information. If the woman confirmed that she has not had intercourse with the man, صُدِّقَتْ, meaning she is believed and the sin is upon him. Right. Another case here says, وَإِن تَرَكَ وَطَعَهَا إِضْرَارًا بِهَا بِلَا يَمِينٍ وَلَا عُذْرٍ فَكَمُونًا. In some cases, some men will not be intimate with their spouses, إِضْرَارًا, to be harmful to them. Right? بِلَا يَمِينٍ, and they don't swear by it. And they don't have no excuse, no legislative excuse to do so. In this case, they take the ruling of a person that is a muli, meaning a person that swore not to be intimate with their spouse for 4 months or for longer than 4 months. Is that clear? Like the next book. So that's completing one book. The next book is also something that is something that people may have heard about. It's called Al-Zihar. Have any of you ever heard of Al-Zihar? Never heard of it. Fine. Al-Zihar. What is Al-Zihar? Al-Zihar is muharram, is impermissible shar'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Mujadala, وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَقُولُونَ مُنْكَرًا مِنَ الْقَوْلِ وَالزُّورَى. And this ayah, or this surah, is talking about a husband who made zihar. Zihar is when فَمَنْ شَبَّهَ زَوْجَتَهُ أَوْ بَعْضَهَا بِبَعْضٍ أَوْ بِكُلِّ مَنْ تَحْرُمُ عَلَيْهِ أَبَدًا بِنَسَبٍ أَوْ رَضَاعٍ. If a husband says to his wife, or part of his wife, that she is haram, شَبَّهَ زَوْجَتَهُ, he compares his wife to someone that is haram for him to marry. For example, you remind me of the back of my mother, or you're like my sister, or you're this, or you're that. In this case, min dhaharin aw bi batnin. Let's say you're like my mother's back, or my mother's stomach, or adwin akhar, or another body part. Or if he says, biqawlihi laha, he says to his wife, anti alayya wa ma'i aw minni ka dhahri ummi aw ka yadi ukhti. He says to his wife, you to me, or from me, you're like the back of my mother or the hand of my sister. Wawaj. And he says another one, it says, wa anti alayya haram. He says to his wife, you to me are haram, kalmitati, like dead animals. As we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran that it is impermissible for us to eat al-maytata. Al-mayta is a deceased animal that we did not slaughter. Or dam, and excessive blood is also considered impermissible, haram. فَهُوَ مُظَاهِرٌ. If he says this to his wife, you to me are like maytata, meaning you're like a dead animal, or you're like blood. In this case, this takes the ruling of mudahirun. If the wife says this to her husband, if she says to him, you to me are like the back of my father, or what have you. In this case, it is not zihar, but she still has to pray for the kafara. Now we're going to talk about that further, the kafara. The kafara is an expiation for the act of a zihar. Like, if a man says to his wife, you're like the back of my mother, etc., etc., وَيَصِحُّ الظِّهَارُ مُعَجَّلًا. It's okay for a man to say to his wife, for example, meaning not okay, but it's still haram. If he says to his wife, you're like the back of my mother, or similar to that, mu'ajjalan, meaning right now. Or mu'allaqan bishart. Or if you walk into this door, or if you come home too late, then you to me are like the back of my mother. Same thing. فَإِذَا وُجِدَ الشَّرْطِ صَارَ مُظَاهِرًا. If she comes home late, or whatever time he didn't want her to come home, and he says this to her, then it takes the ruling of mudahiran, meaning he made zihar. If he says to her, for example, he makes zihar mutlaqan. If he says it mutlaqan, meaning at any time, or he says it muaqqatan, for a certain amount of time. Let's say, for example, he says to his wife, you're like the back of my mother for the month of Ramadan. Or you to me, you're haram for me for the month of Sha'ban, for example, or the month of Shawwal, or the month of Dhul Qa'dah. This is called muwaqqatan, meaning he intended this for a certain time period. So here's the remedy. He says, فَإِنْ وَطِئَ فِيهِ كَفَّرَ. If he says to his wife, you're haram for me in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, or Dhul Qa'dah. You're haram for me in the month of Dhul Qa'dah. Right? Like, if this is the case, and he has intercourse with her during that time, kaffara, then he has to pay the penalty for that. وَإِنْ فَرَقَ الْوَقْتُ زَالَ ذِهَارٌ. If he says to his wife, you're haram for me in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, and the whole month of Dhul Qa'dah passes, then that is not dhihar anymore after that time is over. وَيَحْرَمُ قَبْلَ أَنْ يُكَفِّرَ وَطْعٌ وَدَوَاعِيهِ مِنْ ظِهَارٍ مِنْ ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. It is also haram for the husband to have intercourse with his wife, or foreplay, or anything like that, before he pays the kafara, before he pays the penalty. وَلَا تَثْبُتُ كَفَارَةَ فِي الذِّمَّةِ إِلَّا بِالْوَطْءِ وَهُوَ عَوْدٌ. Let's say, for example, a man says to his wife, you're like the back of my mother, or you're like this, you're like that. Right? So now, if he wanted to come back to her, he has to do what? He has to pay a penalty. There's a penalty that has to be paid. If he doesn't want to come back, then huwa dhak, meaning there's nothing upon him. Meaning there's nothing upon him. Even though he should not have said that, but there's nothing upon him in terms of kafara. وَيَلْزِمُ إِخْرَاجُهَا قَبْلَهُ عِنْدَ الْعَزْمِ عَلَيْهِ. So if he wants to come back to his wife, then he must pay the kafara, the penalty, if he is insistent on being with his wife. Now, let's say, for example, a man says to his wife, you're like the back of my mother, you're haram for me, you're this, you're that. And he says this because maybe in our society a person won't say you're like the back of my mother. That's not the language people use here. But perhaps he might say, I don't want nothing, or you're haram for me. You're haram for me, you're this, that. It takes the same, it means the same. So in this case, it says, وَتَلْزَمُهُ كَفَارَةٌ وَاحِدَةً بِتَقْرِيرِهِ قَبْلَ التَّكْفِيرِ. Let's say, for example, a man says this to his wife one time, and he wants to go back to her to fix the problem, right? So he has to pay the penalty. Let's say he says it to her 3 times on 3 different days before he paid the penalty. Is the penalty multiplied, or is it the same, or what? Is the question clear?
Yeah.
It's clear.
I think for each one he has to pay a...
For each one he has to pay a penalty. Huh? Like, you going with him? So I guess you going with him too? What do you think?
I think so.
See, no independent thought.
Not yet.
Like, so in reality, in a case like this, it's the same. Meaning, if he did it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, as long as he didn't pay the penalty, then it still counts as 1 penalty. Does that make sense? Let's say, for example, he says to his wife today, you're like the back of my mother. You're haram for me. He wants to come back to his wife. He didn't pay the penalty yet, so he still has to pay, what, 1 penalty, right? Fine. Let's say the next day, he says it again. The day after that, he says it again, but he still didn't what? He didn't pay the penalty. The ulama say it doesn't mean that he has to do 1 for each time, rather it's 1 as long as he didn't make the kafara, as long as he didn't pay the penalty. طيب. The next case here, it says, وَفِي أَحْكَامَ كَفَّارَةِ الظِّهَارِ. The rulings for dhihar. The first thing is, if a person were to do this or to say something like this to his wife, what does he have to do? Kafaratuhu. The first thing on the list is itqu raqabatan. Itqu raqabatan is to free a female slave that is a believer, Muslim, etc. However, in this society, there are no what? There are no slaves. Another benefit here, when we used to study this stuff and with the different ulama, the issue of freeing slaves always came up, right? So some of them mentioned that the fact that when you find in the Quran and in the Sunnah multiple times about freeing slaves, they said that this was indicative or an indicator that eventually there will not be any more slaves. That eventually there will not be any more slaves because freeing slaves were encouraged many years ago when there were slaves. Not to say that there aren't any slaves today, but during that time. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ صَامَ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. If you do not have a slave to free, then you are to fast شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. To fast 2 consecutive months. 2 consecutive months. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ إِطْعَامَ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا. And if you're not able, then you must feed 60 poor people. You must feed how many? 60 poor people. وَلَا تَلْزَمُ رَقَبَةٌ إِلَّا لِمَنْ مَلَكَهَا. And it is not obligatory for a person to free a slave unless you actually own one. أَوْ أَمْكَنَهُ ذَلِكَ بِثَمَنٍ مِثْلِهَا. And then it talks about the different types of slaves, etc. And we're not going to get into that. However, it's important to know that if a brother or sister falls into this issue, then there is a penalty for that. There is a penalty, and it is haram, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. It is not something that should be taken lightly. It's realistic for a brother to say to his wife, "You're haram for me." It's realistic. It's possible. Right? It's possible. But another case, as it relates to fasting. If this was the case and a person had to fast 2 consecutive months, what does that look like? What does it look like fasting 2 consecutive months? And let's say Ramadan fell in between. Or let's say there was a sister, or whatever the case may be. For any type of penalty, you have to fast 2 months, right? Let's say it was a sister, she had to fast 2 months and her menses came on. How does that work? Does that cut off the time, or whatever the case may be? So here it says, يَجِبُ وَتَتَبَّ فِي الصَّوْمِ فَإِن تَخَلَّلَهُ. So he says, in a case where it's wajib that a person has to fast, and if there's anything that will prevent that person from fasting consecutively, such as what? Ramadan. Let's say, for example, you fast 2 consecutive months or 1 month, and then in between them is the month of Ramadan. Does Ramadan count as that as well? So it says, فَإِن تَخَلَّلَهُ رَمَضَانَ. Let's say it came between Ramadan, or فِطْرٌ يَجِبُ, or a time where you cannot fast. Are there any times in which a Muslim cannot fast?
Traveling.
No, I didn't say you have the option of not. I said you cannot fast. Are any days that a Muslim cannot fast?
Only a woman.
Okay. يعني ما ينبغي. حرام صعب. We're not talking about haram to fast. It's wajib to eat. Yajibu fitr. That's what we're going to reword it. If it's a day that is wajib that you eat on this day, they eat. Ahsant. So then, let's say, for example, you have to fast 2 consecutive months, and then it falls on Eid al-Adha, for example. Eid al-Adha is in between those days. Does that break off your consecutive fasts? The next one, Ayyam al-Tashriq, the 3 days in Mina. The 3 days in Mina after Hajj. Or a sister's on her menses. She had to fast, for example, 2 consecutive months, and then her menses came. Oh, Janunin. Let's say if a person loses their mind. Oh, Maradin Mukhawif or Mukhufin. Let's say they got a person all of a sudden became sick with a terminally ill throughout the course of their 2 consecutive months. Or anything like that. Oh, Aftara Nasiyan. Let's say a person broke their fast because they forgot. Oh, Mukrahan. Let's say, for example, a person was forced to break their fast due to someone threatening to harm them, etc. Oh, li'udhrin yabihu fitr. Or they have an excuse, a legislative excuse to break their fast. They say, lam yanqati'. Then this does not break off the consecutive fasts. So if any of those things happen, and you had to stop your fast for any of those things that we just mentioned, and then you redo them, it does not break off the consecutive fasts. Meaning you're still within your 60 consecutive days of fasting for 2 consecutive months, not 60 days, 2 consecutive months. The reason why I said not 60 days is because a month can be 29 or 30 days. 29 or 30 days. طيب. ويجزئ التكفير بما يجزئ في فطر فقط. So when it comes to paying food, when it comes to feeding people, so we went through freeing a slave, fasting, and now feeding people. They say يجزئ التكفير بما يجزئ في فطر. If a person wanted to feed someone, then the same food that they would use to feed someone is the same thing they would use when it's time to break their fast, etc. So for example, لا يجزئ من بر أقل من مد. What is bor? Does anyone know what bor is? Shit. Ta'raf bor? Like wheat. Qamah. So let's say, for example, you have wheat. If you wanted to feed someone, you can't give them less than a mud. A mud is the amount of measurement for wheat. What is a mud? Does anyone know what a mud is? the amount for a mud. If you put your hands together,
See that?
good. 2 handfuls together like this, in general, is equivalent to a what? A mud. طيب. The next one. وَلَا مِنْ غَيْرِهِ أَقَلُّ مِنْ مُدَّيْنِ. Anything other than bur, any other type of food element, then there are 2 muds. Muddain. You have to do 1, 2. لِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّمَّنْ يَجُوزُ دَفْعُ زَكَاةِ إِلَيْهِمْ. The food, this type of food can go to anyone that is permissible to pay the zakat to. طيب. And the last issue as it relates to al-dhihar, it says, وَإِنْ أَصَابَ مُظَاهِرُ مِنْهَا لَيْلًا. Let's say, for example, a man is fasting the 2 consecutive months. A man is fasting 2 consecutive months. And it says, وَإِنْ أَصَابَ مُظَاهِرَ مِنْهَا لَيْلًا أَوْ نَهَارًا انْقَطَعَ التَّتَبُّرُ. Let's say, for example, the man who said his wife was haram for him and he started his 2 consecutive months. Obviously, he has to fast 2 consecutive months, right? So in the evening, he wanted to have intercourse with his wife. In the evening, is that permissible? In the evening,
It's Sunday.
once the sun sets, is that permissible?
Should be.
I'm asking.
Yeah, it's Sunday.
You say yeah. Like, he's not fasting. He's not fasting.
No, he broke his fast.
He broke his fast, so he can.
I think so.
You think so? Like, he can. Send it. Like, so it says, وَإِنْ أَصَابَ بُظَاهِرُ مِنْهَا لَيْلًا أَوْ نَهَارًا انْقَطَعَ التَّتَبُّرُ. If he is, now mind you, why is he fasting 2 consecutive months?
Because he said.
Because he said his wife was haram for him.
So you can't.
Hold, listen. So he said 2 consecutive months, and we said before he can't go back to his wife until when?
Oh, the fast is over.
Until his fast is over, until he pays the penalty.
No.
So he's still in the penalty phase, right? The penalty phase is the 2 consecutive months. That means he cannot be intimate with his spouse, regardless whether it's in the nighttime, and let's say they're traveling. Remember, you have a legislative excuse to break your fast. Let's say he's traveling. Let's say the Eid came. It's wajib to eat on the Eid. And he's intimate with his wife during the daytime. In both cases, this will cut off his 2 consecutive months. Is that clear? And this is according to the school of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Mujadila, فَالصِّيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن يَتَمَاسَّا. Allah Jalla wa Ala says in Surah Al-Mujadila, verse number 4, فَالصِّيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. That they must fast 2 consecutive months. Min qabli 8. Meaning he should fast 2 consecutive months before he can touch her. This is what Allah says in the Quran. Allah says, فَصِيَامُ الشَّهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن يَتَمَاسَّا. Before he touches her. طيب. And then it says, وَإِنْ أَصَابَ غَيْرَهَا لَيْلًا لَمْ يَنْقَطِعْ. Now let's say, for example, he has another wife. He has 2 wives. So one wife, he said, was haram for him, etc., etc. And if he were to be intimate with her in the evening, then this would what? Break off his 2 consecutive months. So now he goes to his other wife. And he's intimate with her in the evening. Does this also break off the 2 consecutive months?
No.
You don't know.
Did the ruler only
I'm got to answer the question, Sheikh. You can't answer a question with a question.
I was trying.
Shouldn't it? Allah. But so if he has another wife, lam yanqata', meaning it does not break off the 2 consecutive months. It does not break the 2 consecutive months. It only relates to the wife in which he said was haram for him. Is that clear? Right. Now the next book that we're covering is it's a bit controversial, but it's a serious book. It's called Kitab al-Li'an. Has anyone ever heard of Li'an before? Anyone? Right. So, Zubd al-Kalam, in general, this chapter or this book is dealing with a man who believes he caught his wife cheating on him. What is he supposed to do? What happens? And how does that work Islamically? And I know someone's going to ask the question, well, what if a woman catches her husband cheating? We'll get to that later. The ayah, this is specific for the men who find or catches or believes that they caught their spouses cheating. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى يشترط في صحته أن يكون بين زوجين. So the first condition of this particular book is that the issue of li'an is between a husband and a spouse. Between a husband and a spouse. And then he says, وَمَنْ عَرَفَ الْعَرَبِيَّةِ لَمْ يَصِحْ لِعَانَهُ بِغَيْرِهَا. Whoever knows Arabic from the husband and the spouse, when they do that, it's a thing called li'an. When they do this, it must be in Arabic if they know Arabic. If they try to say it in other than Arabic, then it will not be accepted. We're going to get into what, say what, right? It says, وَإِن جَهِلَهَا فَبِلُغَتِهِ. If they are not knowledgeable of the Arabic language, then whatever language that they know can be used. So first of all, the issue is what? A man, let's say for example, a man comes home, وَيَدَ بِاللَّهِ, and he catches his wife with a man in his house, in his bed, etc., etc. Right? We know in Islam that fornication, adultery is punishable. It's punishable in Islam. But in order for it to hold weight in an Islamic court, there has to be what? Witnesses. There has to be witnesses. How many witnesses? 3. La. 2. La ya akhwan. 1? La hawla wa la quwwata. Huh?
4 witnesses.
4. Yes. 4 witnesses. 4 witnesses. 4 witnesses for what?
The witness, her or him or whatever.
What do they have to witness?
The actual intercourse.
The actual intercourse.
How
The
you gonna
detail.
witness, though?
Huh?
How you gonna witness?
I said. So now we're going to open up another door. In Islam, we're talking about Islam hakikatan. We're talking about real Islam. Sharia. Islamic law. The way it's supposed to be. Not what you hear what goes on around the world. Islamic law. In reality, in Islamic history, the only people that were generally punished for committing adultery were people who confessed on themselves. Because essentially, that's almost something impossible to say. What do you mean by impossible? You have to be able, 4 people have to be able to witness the details. If they're in the bed under the covers, it's not sufficient. 4 people see people under the bed. It looks like something, but it's not sufficient. It won't hold up. It won't hold any weight. The only way it will hold weight Islamically, shar'an, is that 4 people have to describe in detail what they saw. Kadan la yahsul. This is almost impossible to ever find. So anytime you heard historically that, yes, this person was caught and they got stoned to death, chances are it wasn't done correctly. Or the people confessed. As we find during the time of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, with some of the Sahabi, they came to him and he said that they fornicated. So the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he turned away from them on 4 different occasions. There was a sister that came to the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, al-Ghamidiyya. She was pregnant. He told her, go away. She was pregnant. She wanted to confess. He told her, go away. They didn't perform the hajj. He told her, go away, go away. Then she came back. She said, okay, she was pregnant. He said, go away. Then she said, we'll come back once you have the baby. So she came back after she had the baby. Then he said, well, go back, you got to breastfeed. So she went breastfeed, got someone to breastfeed the baby, and she came back and she wanted this punishment done. Same thing for Ma'iz, the Sahabi. Same thing happened to him. He came to the Prophet ﷺ. Well, let's back up. Imrat al-Ghamidiyya, when she eventually was stoned to death, some of the Sahaba, they made some not good statements about her. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that her tawbah would suffice everyone here. Her sincere tawbah, repentance to Allah, will cover everyone here. As for Ma'iz, the Sahabi, who was also in this situation, he came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, perhaps you just kissed her. Perhaps you just hugged her. Perhaps this, perhaps that, perhaps this. And he asked him 4 times. He came to him 4 times, and then eventually agreed, meaning Ma'iz, the Sahabi, he wanted to be stoned. So when they began to stone him, he got up and ran away. And some of the companions caught him and stoned him to death. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, why didn't you leave him? Why didn't you let him run? لِمَاذَا لَمْ تَتْرُكُهُ? Why didn't you leave him? Let him go. Maybe he made tawbah. Maybe this, maybe that. Many of the ulama, when you study the book of Islamic law, especially crimes and punishments, in a case like this, they said if a person confesses and then they change their confession, sometimes you could let them go. Let them go. Because in this case, the jurm, or the crime, la yata'adda, meaning in this case it may just stick with him. There's no other people affected by it. And Allah knows best. Allah Ta'ala a'lam. As it relates to this issue of zina, fornication, it says that فَإِذَا قَذَفَ إِمْرَأَتُهُ بِالزِّنَا. Let's say, for example, a man says to his wife, I saw you commit zina. Now, mind you, he didn't have 4 witnesses. And we also know that if a man accuses a woman, or vice versa, of zina, of fornication, with no witnesses, this is called a qadhaf. This is also punishable in Islam. If a man accuses a woman of fornication, and he has no witnesses to support it, if this was in an Islamic court, they would be lashed, beat, openly. Same thing for a woman. If a woman accused a man of this and she doesn't have 4 witnesses, she will also be punished by being flogged. So in both cases, this issue of accusing someone of fornication is a serious issue in Islam. It is not one to be taken lightly. So what do you do in a case if a man says, I saw my wife doing this, but I don't have 4 witnesses, but I saw her doing, I believe she did it. What am I supposed to do? Act like it didn't happen? Islamically, what am I supposed to do? Some of the companions said he would kill her. Right? This is in some of the narrations. You can't do that. You don't have a right Islamically to do that. You don't shar'an, you do not possess that right in Islamic law or any other law for that matter. So now the question is, what do you do? So Islam has a chapter in Islam called Li'an. And this chapter here deals with that situation. So here, فَإِذَا قَذَفَ إِمْرَأَتُهُ بِالزِّنَا. Let's say, for example, the man says, he accuses his wife of committing zina. فَلَهُ إِسْقَاطُ الْحَدِّ وَاللِّعَانِ. He can now, by him accusing her of zina, he can forego the punishment for himself for being lashed by doing li'an. In other words, if he didn't want to do li'an and he accused his wife of zina, then he would be what? Lashed. He says, I saw her with this man, but I don't want to get lashed, but I saw her with this man in my house. What am I supposed to do? His option is called li'an. طيب. فَيَقُولُ قَبْلَهَا أَرْبَعْ مَرَّاتٍ. Now, Islam stipulates that if this were the case, فَيَقُولُ قَبْلَهَا, that he must say in front of a judge before his wife 4 times. Ashhadu billah, that I swear by Allah, or I bear witness by Allah, لَقَدْ زَنَتْ زَوْجَتِي هَذِهِ. That he said, I bear witness by Allah that my wife, and he mentioned her name, Yashiru ilayha, he point to her, mention her name, وَيَنْسِبُهَا, you mention her name and her lineage, and you do that 4 times. He says, أَشْهَدُ بِاللَّهِ لَقَدْ زَنَتْ زَوْجَتِي هَذِهِ. That he swears by Allah 4 times, or he makes this 4 times that his wife committed fornication, and he says her entire name. وَفِي الْخَامِسَةِ, and in the 5th instance, he says, إِنَّ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. And in the 5th instance, he calls for the curse of Allah to be upon him if he is lying. That's heavy.
And this is all have to be said in Arabic, right?
If you speak Arabic or understand it, yes. If not, it could be done in whatever language that if the person knows, right? So the husband is saying that he swears by Allah, or he bear witness by Allah that he's by Allah. We're not talking about by the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That his wife is a fornicator. And he does it 4 times. And on the 5th time, he's invoking the curse of Allah to be upon him if he is a liar. ثُمَّ تَقُولُ هِيَ, and then she says, أَرْبَعَ مَرَّاتٍ, and she says 4 times, أَشْهَدُ بِاللَّهِ لَقَدْ كَذَبَ فِي مَا رَمَانِ بِي مِنَ الزِّنَا. And she says, I bear witness with Allah that he is lying about what he said about me, that I committed zina. And she says that 4 times. And then she says on the 5th time, أَنَّ غَضَبَةَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهَا إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. And he said, may the anger of Allah be upon her if her husband is telling the truth. طيب. فَإِنْ بَدَأَتْ بِاللِّعَانِ. Now, when wouldn't it be accepted? Let's say, for example, because they're nervous. Understand, this is something that you're saying in front of Allah. If a person has taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a rough situation to be in. If you're a person with no taqwa, then it means nothing. You'll swear in front of everyone. It means nothing to you. But if you're a person that believes in Allah on the last day, this is heavy. So he says, فَإِنْ بَدَأَتْ بِاللِّعَانِ. If she starts with the li'an, let's say for example she starts off first, قَبْلَهُ أَوْ نَقَضَ أَوْ نَقَصَ أَحَدَهُمَا شَيْئًا مِنَ الْأَلْفَاظِ. Let's say instead of saying the whole thing, they say part of it. Or لَمْ يُحْدِرْهَهُمَا الْحَاكِمُ. Let's say for example they do it but there's no judge there, there's no religious authority there. Or نَائِبُهُ أَوْ أَبْدَلَ لَفْظٍ. Or they switch the words out and say something else. لَمْ يَصِحْ. Then it's not correct. If they say it, then it's not correct. Right. The next scenario. وَإِنْ قَذَبَ الْمَجْنُونَ عُزِّرَ وَلَا لِعَانٍ. Let's say, for example, a husband, he has a wife that has some intellectual challenges, some mental challenges. And he accuses her of zina. In this case, he is uzzir, meaning he is punished by way of ta'zir, meaning he may be lashed himself, but there's no li'an. Or maybe, aywa. وَمِنْ شَرْطِهِ قَذَفُهَا بِالزِّنَا لَفْظًا كَالزَّنِيتِ أو يَا زَانِيَةً. The only way, the condition for there to be li'an is that he has to call her, that he has to literally say, my wife committed zina. Or he calls her Ya Zaniya. Zaniya is a woman that commits fornication. Ra'aytu taznina fi qubalin aw duburin. That he saw her committing fornication, either he saw her committing fornication. فَإِنْ قَالَ وَضِعْتِ بِشُبْهَةٍ. Now, another case is وَضِعْتِ بِشُبْهَةٍ. Let's say, for example, his wife committed fornication, but he didn't say she committed fornication. She had intercourse bishubha, meaning a doubtful intercourse. What could that be? Let's say, for example, the wife and the husband, they got a divorce. he divorced her. She doesn't know much about Islam. She hears people say, okay, you get a divorce, the iddah period is only 30 days. Huh? So the 30 days go by. Meanwhile, the husband understands it's 3 menstrual cycles. So she goes through the first one, and now she's on the second one, and his plan was to take her back. However, he turns around and finds out that she got married to somebody else during her iddah period, and in this case, this is considered, if she didn't know, it may be considered what shubha, meaning she didn't know, she was unfamiliar with the rules as it regards to iddah period. Oh, mukrahatan. Let's say, for example, she was raped wa yadhu billah. Or na'imatan. Let's say a spouse was asleep in some, or whatever the case may be. Or qala lam tazni walakin laysa hadha waladu minni. But after all these instances that happened, she became pregnant. And he wanted to take his wife back. So he says, I'm not going to say she committed fornication. وَلَكِنْ لَيْسَ هَذَا وَلَدُ مِنِّي. However, I'm not going to say she committed fornication, but what I'm going to say is that that child she's carrying is not mine. That child that she is carrying is not mine. فَشَهِدَتْ إِمْرَأَةٌ ثِقَةٌ أَنَّهُ وُلِدَ عَلَى فَرَاشِهِ لَحِقَهُ نَسَبُهُ وَلَا لِعَانٍ. But if there are women, and during that time they didn't have DNA testing. Mind you, this book was written over 1,000 years ago. They used to have women who specialized in identifying children and who the parents were. This is like something that they did thousands of years ago, right? 1,000, not thousands, over 1,000 years ago. So they said that إِذَا كَانَ امْرَأَةٌ ثِقَةٌ, a trustworthy woman that knows this, she can still look at the child and say this child was born on their bed, ala firashihi, meaning his bed. You know how people say children of the bed? Huh? Children of the bed means legal halal children. That's what it means. And it says, وَوُلِدَ عَلَى فِرَاشِهِ. That means that child was born to his firash, meaning the firash or the bed of the husband. لَحِكَهُ نَسَبَهُ. Then the child will take the father's name, and this is not li'an. This is not considered li'an. وَمِنْ شَرْطِهِ أَن تُكَذِّبُهُ الزَّوْجَةِ وَإِذَا تَمَّ اللِّعَانِ سَقَطَ عَنْهُ الْحَدْ وَالتَّعْزِيرُ. One of the conditions of a li'an is that the wife has to say that he's lying. Right? If he accuses his wife of zina, fornication, she has to say, no, that's not true. She has to say, no, it's not true. وَإِذَا تَمَّ, meaning if they complete the li'an process, سَقَطَ عَنْهُ الْحَدْ وَالتَّعْزِيرُ. Then he won't be punished, and she won't be punished. Let's say she did really commit zina, but she did the li'an. That means she wouldn't be punished and he wouldn't be what? Punished in the dunya. They wouldn't be punished in the dunya for that act. The purpose of the li'an, when they swear, the husband swears and the wife swears, they're removing the dunyawi punishment from themselves. Is that clear? They are removing the dunyawi punishment from themselves. It says, وَتَثْبُتُ فَرْقَةُ بَيْنَهُمَا بِتَحْرِيمَ مُؤَبَّدٍ. However, once they complete the li'an process, what happens between the both of them? Does anyone know? That's his wife. Sah? Is that not his wife? Okay. He says she committed zina, she says she didn't. They both go in front of the judge. He swears that she did it. She swears that she didn't. What happens after that?
Their relationship?
Yeah, what happens to their relationship? Is there any rekindling after that?
I wouldn't.
That's you. You wouldn't. The first. What happens?
The husband can never return back to
Ahsant. Now, the natija or the result of this is that they are separated and they can never, ever, ever get married again until they die.
So that would still be ruled in the fisc, right?
A fuss, however way the judge deems it, but they can never, this is something different. They can never get married again. If there's a fasqu nikah, it's possible they can get married again. If there's 3 divorces, if she marries someone else, divorce, it's possible for them to get married again. In this case, they can never get married again. Ever.
That's serious.
It's a done deal. And with that, we're going to stop with that, inshallah. The next class is rather comprehensive. We're going to be dealing with the different types of iddah that women have. So, questioner, already got a question that somebody might ask, right? We understand that all of this is for the men. What about the women? Meaning, what if a woman catches her husband in this compromising state? So I'm going to read some statements quickly from some of the ulama about this. It says, Al-li'an innama yushra'u li'amrayn. That the li'an was legislated for two reasons. أولا إذا قذف الزوج زوجته بالزنا ولم يأتي بأربعة شهود فله إسقاط حد القذف عنه باللعان. The first issue is, the first reason is that if a husband believes that he catches his wife committing zina, but he doesn't have 4 witnesses, this removes the punishment for him for accusing a woman of fornication with no evidence. ثاني, the second one, and يريد نفي الولد عنه. The second issue is he wants to deny a child that may be attributed to him by way of her committing fornication. Like, أصل في ذلك, the dalil for this, والذين يرمون أزواجهم ولم يكن لهم شهداء إلا أنفسهم فشهادة أحدهم 4 شهادات بالله إنه لمن الصادقين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nur, الذين يرمون أزواجهم, those who accuse their spouses of zina, ولم يكن لهم شهداء, and they don't have witnesses, إلا أنفسهم, except for themselves, فشهادة أحدهم, one of them, meaning the husbands, their witness counts as 4 if they swear by Allah that they are truthful. قال ابن كثير رحمه الله, هذه آية الكريمة فيها فرج للأزواج وزيادة المخرج إذا قذف أحدهم زوجته. That Ibn Kathir, he says that this ayah, it shows as a way of release, a way for a husband to escape the punishment or the punishment of accusing someone without having the witnesses. وَتَعَصَّرَ عَلَيْهِ إِقَامَةَ البَّيِّنَةِ. Because in this case, it's going to be extremely difficult for him to establish witnesses of someone having intercourse with his wife. And يُلَعِنَهَا كَمَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ جَلَّ وَعَلَى, that they bring the curse of Allah upon them in this case. So here, as it relates to فَإِذَا قَالَ ذَلِكَ بَانَتْ مِنْهُ, in this case, if a woman, she accuses her husband of the same thing, many of the scholars of Al-Islam, when they look at this issue, they say that it is for the woman, and just like it's for the man. Let's back up. If a man catches his wife committing zina, he has options. He can either be patient with her, he can try to I'm just saying, these are his options, right? He can forgive her, he can be patient with the situation, they can try to work through it, etc., etc., etc. All these things are possible. In this case, if the man does not want to, then this is the option. This is the option that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the man. As it relates to the woman, she has the same option in that she can be patient, she don't have to deal with it. If she saw her husband commit zina with another woman, she can ask for a khul'ah, she can get a fasq, she can do many different things, but she can't say she saw him commit zina. She can't call her husband a zani unless he says it himself. This is very, very important. If she says, well, listen, I went out of the marriage because she can say, I'll give you an example. When we first started school, this was maybe in 2007 to 2008. We were studying a book called Umdat al-Fiqh with Sheikh Abdul Majid al-Subayl. We were sitting in this masjid, and I got a text from a brother in America, or a sister in America. She said that her husband committed zina. And I said, how did he commit zina? She said, I found a woman's underwear in his pocket. So at the time, before we studied, we said, she got him. So I told the sheikh, she caught her husband committing zina. You was there then? I told the sheikh, the brother or the sister caught her husband committing zina. So the sheikh said, well, did they have 4 witnesses? I was like, no. Sheikh says, well, how do you know? Well, sheikh, the key piece of evidence was she found underwears in his pocket. Sheikh said, Tayyip, what's that? Now I'm looking at the sheikh like, come on, sheikh. What do you mean, what's that? Sheikh said, in Islam, because we're talking about Islamic law, is circumstantial evidence, but it's not convicting evidence in a religion of Islam. Meaning, you can't now consider a person a zani being adultery, meaning he could be put to death based on finding underwears in his pocket. But I said, okay, but sheikh, what is she supposed to do? She has options. She can say, hey, I don't trust him anymore because I found underwears in his pocket and it's not mine. So therefore, I went out of the marriage, etc. There's no judge that would deny that in a case like that in general. But to label him a zani, meaning a fornicator, is a heavy affair without evidence. It's a deep issue. You can't just arbitrarily say, well, since I found this, then he is a zani. Now, there are sisters who caught their husbands doing stuff, no doubt. Right? But they stay. Some women, they stay. The women that want to leave, they have the option to leave. If you say, well, what happened? Well, I saw him with another one. It doesn't necessarily mean that you saw him commit fornication, but you saw him with another woman. You saw him doing this. You saw him doing that. You don't trust him. The situation is bad, etc., etc. Then she can leave the marriage, either by divorce, khula'a, fasq, etc., etc. However, as it relates to li'an, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only gave to the men, and Allah knows best. We're going to close out with that, inshallah. And next week, we will start Kitab al-Iddah or al-Iddah. Any questions, inshallah? Sisters, do you have any questions? You got something, sir? طيب. If there are no questions, we're going to start with that, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.